For the last 23 years, we actually started on the same day, we've been paid for telling stories. 21 years at Disney in the last year and a half.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool job. We get to draw pictures and tell stories and,
yeah.
and make a career out of it. So
we've been part of teams, we've led teams doing this, and we thought we'd share what we've learned and sort of what works for us. You could see a little bit of the process. And to do that, we are going to use our film that we're working on now called The Legend of Timbo, which is being made right here in Port St. Lucie on the Treasure Coast.
At Digital Domain.
Digital Domain. Yep. Comes out in about 3 years. So how did we start? Where did this come from? Well, inevitably, you start with this.
And it's always the toughest. I mean, looking at that blank page, and you could have any idea that you want. And we have to start narrowing it down, and we start talking about what inspires.
Yeah, it can be very intimidating. So the way we sort of break it down, we do what we call spaghetti pitches.
Why do we call them spaghetti pitches? Because we throw them against the wall and we see what sticks.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's what kind of stories do we want to tell? Really, it's kind of like what's cool, what's a good place, what's a good world to go into, what kind of thing haven't we seen before?
What touches us in our hearts?
So when we got together, and this all comes from inspiration, and when we did Brother Bear, it actually started with that song by Harry Chapin, Cats in the Cradle.
Yeah, Chuck and I were talking about, it was a father-son story at one time, and we were talking about this song, a song about a father who didn't spend enough time with his son and how much regret he had. And over the course of a conversation, we started coming up with a movie idea.
And that part in the song where the dad goes, "My boy was just like me," sings that part, we always got teared up with that.
Well, he did.
And we said, you know, if we could capture a little moment like that in that song, that corny 70s song, and put that in a film, that would be a great way to start. Now, it evolves over time, but ideas, inspiration ideas can come from anything, from books, songs, other movies. We see a lot of movies, we read a lot of stories, and we talk about what inspires us. The key is, we feel, and it reflects the presenters before us, is to evoke emotion from the audience. You want the sad parts to make an audience cry, you want the funny parts to make them laugh, you want the exciting parts to make their hearts beat go faster and faster. Take them to a world, inspire them, but take them through an emotional experience.
And to do that for us, we have to tap into the things, the experiences. It doesn't necessarily have to be the exact experience that we're creating on the screen, but something that we've experienced in ourselves, something that we can make real for us.
Right. That keeps it true. So, that we took sort of our spaghetti ideas, just basic premises, and we pitched a dozen of them. It was actually just us and John Texter and maybe a couple other people. We had just started out a year and a half ago. Mm-hmm. And we boiled the dozen down to 4. They happened to be a comedy, a fantasy, a sci-fi, and an adventure film, though that wasn't by design. And one of the things that John was excited about, and we had been talking about back in our Disney's days, is doing an elephant story. And this is actually your first drawing, or painting of an elephant.
I mean, part of our process as we talk about stories, and we'll show a little bit of this in a little bit later, but we'll also draw, and I paint. I'm an illustrator by trade, or by training. And so we knew that we wanted to do an elephant story, so I did a painting of an elephant and kind of evoking the mood of what we might want to show in our story.
Right. So this was actually the board that we pitched 3 elephant stories on. Tusker, the one on the left that we used for that image for, was an idea that's been kicking around animation for a while. We didn't like it that much after we had pitched it. Modoc on the right was a story, it was a book that we were thinking of adapting. Mm-hmm. But we had this original idea called Timbo, and it's the epic life story of a young elephant who's captured in the African savannah and, what's it say? And
I can't read it from here, but
changed into a battle elephant. He becomes a battle elephant. You'll see some battle elephant images down there. That's all it was, just an idea of this little elephant that becomes a battle elephant. And we didn't know much about battle elephants, we just knew they existed.
And be fun to watch.
And be fun to watch. We called it Bambi Meets Gladiator. Starts off really sweet, and you just fall in love with this little guy. He's innocent, and he turns into this battle. What would that journey be like, and what could we learn or teach from that sort of journey? So with that in mind, so we had our elephant.
Right. And here's a little sketch that I drew where I wanted something really cute, something that we could start attaching some emotion to.
So our blank page is starting to get filled up. So the next step is research the heck out of this. We need to know, we want it to be based in some sort of truth and some sort of spin on it. So we just throw ourselves at all kinds of research. And the trick with research, for those of you putting together English papers, is to start with what you know.
What's in the common psyche across the board that everyone knows about elephants?
Right, because that's what your audience is going to bring to
the theater.
To the theater.
Yeah.
So this was our list, or the sort of the beginnings of it. We know there's African elephants and Indian elephants. I knew nothing about the difference between them. They're used for work. They were used for battle. They were the original tanks. They're cool in water, and it was just a list. We knew Dumbo.
Yeah, we wanted to show elephants swimming. We knew at some point we wanted to see an elephant on the water because it's really cool to look at.
We saw a commercial or something with it. I didn't know they swam, but in the commercial I saw that they did. So we just started with our list. Then you get online, and Google Images and Google has just revolutionized the kind of research that we could do. So just go find everything we can about elephants.
But the research doesn't stop there either. I mean, we know, for instance, that our story is going to take place in Africa, in India, possibly Nepal. It's going to be a big epic story. So where are we going next month? We're going to those places. We're going to research those places. Yep. We're going to film them. We're going to experience them. We're going to bring them back back to Florida and incorporate that into our story.
Right. So once we do that sort of initial research, we get in a room and we talk about what we loved, what was cool. You'll get a little character idea. Hey, there was an elephant that did this, or we had read about an elephant that in the Roman army that had fallen in battle, and he had seen these Roman soldiers take a leaf and wave it for mercy. And the elephant had seen a human do that, and imitating that behavior, he had done it himself. He had waved to not be taken out, had waved it in there. We thought that was a cool idea, and just things that would make good set pieces in the movie, good facts, cool images that we find, and we start doing these sketches.
We draw and we draw. We do animated films. And yes, this is going to be a CG, a computer animated film, but it still starts with drawing, and we're a studio full of artists. So we sit down and as we talk, and John actually was in our office, John Texter, we were talking the other day, and he mentioned, as we talk, we create ideas. I create ideas visually as we're talking, as we create ideas verbally also. So this all kind of gets mixed together and it starts to evolve and form.
You start to see the picture coming alive. We went to the Miami Zoo, as Aaron said. We're going to Africa, India, and Thailand next month. But our first trip was Miami Zoo, which was cool too.
Close to home.
Yeah, and just got to draw elephants, and we got behind the stage and talked to some of the trainers, and got to see them up close and see what that's about. And we do lots more research. If you come to our studios, the walls are full of, those are big 8-foot by 4-foot boards, just full of images, because we're telling pictures and sound. That's the medium that we tell our stories in. So pictures are key everywhere.
The other important part that we want to mention during this process as we create these stories, it sounds like we do a step-by-step process, and it's really not that way. It's a very non-linear process. We'll come up with an idea here, and we'll jump back to the beginning, because that's going to affect a core idea that we came up with long time ago at the beginning of the story. Now we have to adjust it. So we're constantly going back and forth and letting this thing evolve. I always compare it to a Rubik's Cube. You get one side working really good, but heck, you just messed up the other side. So now you got to go back, and eventually you get it, all the colors and everything working right. Yeah.
So from all this, sort of 3 things emerge. And you heard the actors before us talking about characters. And we talk about this all the time. What does a character want? What's in their way? What's stopping them from getting that happen? We talk about their backstory, how the ensemble works, how characters work with other characters. And we talk about actor types, and again, lots more drawing.
Not specific actors necessarily, but types.
So from that, we create boards like this. So we have a bird in our film who's an oxpecker, and Aziz Ansari, who's an actor from Parks and Recreation, is sort of the type. He may end up being the voice for the character, but he's sort of the type of guy that we see that little bird as. And I don't know if Timbo's down there on the right, the little cute elephant. And the idea we had for him was the Jerry Maguire kid, who's probably 70 years old now. But back then, when he was 5 and he was curious and innocent in the movie Jerry Maguire, we said that's the kind of guy we want. And we write out adjectives, and Aaron does artwork, and we talk about all this, and the characters start to come alive. So now we know, for instance,
we've created an elephant, and through our research, and this little character that we have in our story now, here's a precocious little Bambi-like elephant who loves bugs. He's fascinated by the world. He's starting to evolve now.
And that was one of the traits we had for him. So the other thing that comes out of it, character, is plot. Plot is what happens in the movie. What are the events that go on in a movie? And this we use right from our high school English, a three-act structure. And there's sort of common terms that we'll throw around. Any of you know Joseph Campbell's sort of teaching, you probably learned it in high school English, is things like the call to adventure, the refusal of the call, obstacles that you get along the way. So when we're trying to figure out what happens to this character on his journey, we're using all those same things that we learned about.
Adhering to these principles, these notions, help us keep the story structured and help us keep it together.
Right. And we then take that plot and we start to illustrate it. We find other movies that have similar kind of beats in it, that work. You know, it may be a bad movie, but they had one great scene where this happened, and we'll say we want it to be like that, but our own sort of twist on it, and it's the shape of the movie starts to come into place.
All the while still drawing, still trying to represent our story beats through images.
Right. And then it's a very sort of, we card the film on these big boards, and we break each act down into individual scenes. And in each scene, you break it down into individual beats of what happens. In the beginning of the scene, he comes in and he's happy because he had I don't know.
He caught a bug.
He caught a bug. And then his brother, that's the first beat. The second beat, his brother goes, "Why are you always messing with bugs?" You know, or whatever. And we play it that way. And it's all sort of written out. So that's sort of plot.
And that evolves just through constant exchange of ideas. We have so many people sitting in the room with us, and we all try to keep the same vision, and idea after idea after idea is thrown out onto the table, and it's up to Chuck and I to kind of sift through all that and start to string the story together.
Right. So the thing that strings it together,
right.
We have all these ideas, and we have so much time, and there are a lot of good, smart people we work with, is the theme. And the theme is, and it's kind of hard, not everybody,
to me,
I didn't get it when I was younger.
Well, the theme is the most important part of story writing, in my opinion. It's the idea that holds the film together.
It's what you want to say with the movie.
Yeah, in my mind, if your movie is a backyard, then the theme is the fence. It holds it all in, it keeps everything within that container. And anytime we start breaking outside that idea, if that story, little bit of an idea doesn't fit the theme, isn't a step in creating what that movie's about, then it gets thrown out. It's
even if it's a great idea, it's just not our movie, so
right.
You have to sort of toss it out.
Exactly. And
it's what you want to say. It's what the movie all adds up to. To give an audience an emotional experience, if you have something to say within it, so at the end of that journey, they can learn what the character learned, or we don't want to preach, and we don't want to.
It does. It usually comes out as a notion, as an instruction. The film we're making now is never forget who you are. Let's make a movie about that.
Yeah, yeah.
And we put it up on the wall, and it stays there for 4 years as we create this story. And we never deviate from that idea.
We try to make all our choices, as the actors were talking about, based on that theme idea. So it's critically important and holds it all together. And constantly we get in a room with, this is what our room looks like now, our story room. And those are the beats, and we've started to illustrate the beats. And you stand up in front of the team and you start to pitch the idea from beginning to end. And again, even in a pitch, you're trying to get just a little tweak of emotion. Oh, that part was really sad, or oh, that's going to be a great scene. I could see it happening.
We get in there, we act it out. You know, we feel the emotion, we emote. It's like improv class, and we have a great time doing it. And the story evolves there. You can feel where it starts to lag. You can feel where it's hitting, and you can see the group sitting there being riveted or being bored.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That leads to step 4, which actually should say 3 things. We're writing, you see, we haven't written a script yet. We're laying it out. We're mapping it all out. We're doing pictures. But now we start writing a script. We start storyboarding, which are sort of cartoon panels of each beat, each sequence.
The comic book version of the movie, basically.
Yeah. You lay out what a character would say from the script, but you show it visually. And then we record that and cut it in editorial, where the real sort of rubber hits the road and you see, did it work or did it not? And what's involved here are a lot of story artists. I think we have 8 on the film
and you'll
now.
see, I mean, you can see from these images, our guys, we get together and they immerse themselves in the world that we're trying to create, of elephants, of Africa, of India. And they're constantly doing research. They're sending YouTube videos of the Roman armies, and there's constant exchange of ideas flowing back and forth between the team.
And we laid it out, got it all perfectly planned, and then it always comes back to 90% of what we do stinks. And we have to redo it. And because it's all theory, right? It's all, until you sit in the room and the theater goes dark and the projector starts and that magic happens, all the BS ends. Either it works and you were moved by it, or it's boring, or the gag didn't make you laugh, and you tear it down and you restructure it again. We will board this film 8 times minimally. We have it all scheduled out to board every 3 months. We're reboarding, putting the film up again and going, okay, that gag worked, keep that, but this gag was, it stunk, let's pull it out.
We'll tear it all down.
Tear it all down. And that's how we're coming up with the story of a young African elephant who's innocent and curious about the world, who is taken by poachers, kidnapped, taken from his home, put on a ship. The ship is shipwrecked, and he ends up washed ashore on a foreign shore in a strange land where he's captured again, put on a work farm, and grows huge, grows into this big giant. And in order to get home, he joins the army and becomes this huge battle elephant.
And so, by the time we get to this point, by the time we get the story all worked out, it's a collection of millions of ideas that have been spouted out over, the course of 4 years. And as long as we get those ideas all lined up just perfectly, we can create a film that will grab you and kind of take you on this journey. It's a lot like animation itself, which is a collection of all these drawings that are perfectly lined up that can create magic. And that is how we've done this. Whoops. And they will go back. And there's our first little test of our little elephant going after his little bug and coming to life.
It'll be a CG animated film, but Aaron did this test, actually finished it yesterday. It's the first little movement we see of Tembo.
Where we try to get his personality across as quickly as possible, drawing it out, and trying to get some cuteness.
One drawing at a time.
There you have it.
So that's The Legend of Tembo. Thanks.